people to decide, right? That's the system that we have. If some people say it's the most important thing and they don't want to vote for it, that's up to them. If people, I believe, you know, it is a factor, but what's more of a factor is the economic impact that the Biden administration has had on their pocketbooks, on their gas prices, on their food prices, etc., right? When, you know, the age-old question, you better off today than you were 4 years ago, still holds true. And the question was, I was better off 4 years ago by every discernible metric. And under that criteria, I think the American people are going to look for new leadership.
You were a cop a long time ago. Are felony convictions generally an indicator of good character?
Look, hey, you know, I have no idea what's an indication of good character. You know, sometimes we're living in an upside-down world, to be honest with you. I was a cop a long time ago, and it was a great job, and I really enjoyed it. But you have to ask yourself sometimes, right? Where are we going? Like, what do we decide now? Do I want someone who's going to make my family safer? You bet I do. Do I want someone who's going to help me have more economic freedom? You bet I do. So, look, you know, what I want is I don't think anybody in America wants to raise their children right now on the south side of Chicago. I think it's devastating how much crime we have in some of these neighborhoods. And I've heard the mainstream media say, well, violent crime is actually down. Well, why don't you go tell that to the families who've been devastated by some of these crimes that have been taking place? And so, you know, if we want a president who wants to continue to perpetrate that, then they've got their guy in the office. They want someone who can change that, and they can go back to the days when Donald Trump was in office. So we'll see, guys. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks.
All right, listening there to some remarks from the Trump surrogate, Corey Lewandowski. Speaking ahead of tonight's presidential debate, let's take another look out there, a bit wider shot inside of Georgia Tech, where the spin room is underway. Now we are seeing way more political figures walking into this arena ahead of the debate. One such figure that we're seeing coming up to some reporters now and speaking is the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. Let's pump up the audio and hear what he has to say ahead of this historic event.
Well, Lindsey Graham was until they sold her soul.
Are you afraid?
I'm not afraid at all. Absolutely not afraid. We're going to win this election.
Greg Hodges here with Stokes Hodges Kia, your connection to a cool new ride at a great price. Shop your...
Donald Trump is calling on the president to be drug tested. It was a similar story in 2020. So what can we expect from the former president tonight? Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds joins us next for a preview. You're streaming America Decides.
I think Governor Romney maybe hasn't spent enough time looking at how our military works. You mentioned the Navy, for example, and that we have fewer ships than we did in 1916. Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen, because nothing ever happens in East Palestine, but it did.
Authorities released toxic fumes from 5 derailed train cars.
Resident, please evacuate.
Acute bronchitis due to chemical fumes.
Did you ever have these problems before the derailment?
No, ma'am. This neighborhood's not safe no more.
We can assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing, bronchitis?
That's a hard question to answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant releases of a mixture of some of the most toxic chemicals that we've seen in America.
I feel like now I have a duty to warn other communities. If my daughter has to watch me die of cancer, at least it saves someone else.
This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original, 48 Hours, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
Or you can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
I appreciate some of my Democratic friends say, well, I can't support Biden, and I agree with them on every other issue. But you're going to support Trump? It's a binary choice. At the end of the day, it really is. With respect to the third-party candidates, we've seen that movie before. It's a binary choice. And the consequences of getting this wrong are off the charts. The idea that you're going to hear any empathy, any compassion expressed from Donald Trump is literally laughable. And not just tonight, but in the future as it relates to what's happening in Gaza. I haven't heard it once before. There's no prospect we're going to hear it in the future. It's not who he is. Yeah, I want to be careful of opining on that because obviously I don't want to speculate on that. But I'd rather have the steady hand of the Biden administration, alertedness, and stewardship in that process than the recklessness to which Donald Trump approaches those kinds of agreements.
Do you think it would be a good requirement of Biden administration regarding the U.S.-Mexico relation in 2026?
Absolutely not. The number one trading partner in the United States of America now is Mexico. The greatest opportunity. I mean, Mexico is an economy on the rise. The opportunities are limitless in Mexico, particularly in relationship, again, to the geopolitical dynamics in China, back to the issue of supply chains and de-risking. Mexico can bear the greatest benefits. Now, what has Trump said in relationship? He says he wants to break the core tenet of those agreements by throwing a tariff on every vehicle that comes from Mexico, 10%. I mean, so that's just an indication that this is not even a difficult question to answer. He's not well learned or thought out his approach to that extension. Sure, you, Biden and his team, Gina and others have.
How important do you think China will influence this tonight's debate and also this election?
Well, I think in many respects, Biden's been even tougher on China than Trump has, but he's also been more strategic than Trump has. He recognizes divorce is not an option, and that we have to address our strategic competitiveness and his willingness to work collaboratively, address the issue not only of trade and fair trade, free trade, issues of human rights, but targeted strategies on tariffs that I think are appropriate under the circumstance to maintain our national security advantages and to create more stability in terms of our economic advantage, particularly on AI. I think have been very thoughtful. At the same time, he's back-channeling and reaching to find common ground, particularly on issues of climate change and fentanyl with the Chinese. So I think it's a much more thoughtful and thought-out approach than the scattered-shot approach and the rhetoric and the xenophobia that you hear from President Trump.
Governor, you've talked about Donald Trump as a threat to democracy, and many supporters of President Biden agree with you that President Trump is still a threat if he loses and he won't accept the results of the election. Are you afraid that other Republican governors would help him contest results and possibly block him?
Well, I mean, there are no profile courage awards going to Governor Kemp or any of these folks that are saying they're with him, even though he tried to vandalize democracy and tried to vandalize the election. And Kemp at least had the courage of a conviction in the primary and said he didn't vote for him, but he's going to vote for him in the general. I mean, I'm not fearful of that. It's
Gavin Newsom, everybody.
It's deeply distressing how none of these folks have all sold their soul to this.
None of these folks have sold their soul. You heard that, everybody.
And they'll sell us out.
Definitely not.
This guy vandalized.
Not one soul been
He
sold.
lost the election and tried to wreck this country. Period. Full stop. That's what McConnell said. That's what Lindsey Graham was. Everybody. I mean, I have pundits on Fox saying this is an Obama. He's got to stop. They're texting everyone saying stop this right now. And now they've all rolled over and they've developed complete amnesia that any of that stuff happened. It's just extraordinary.
There's still a lot of commentators on the right who think you're going to
They're doing that. They're doing that because they're doing that very intentionally to chum the waters, to weaken this campaign. It's done very intentionally. It's a golden oldie. It's exhausting. And I pay a lot of attention to that. I watch a lot of these networks that go on, some of those networks, as you may know. It's absurd, and they know it's absurd, and they're falling prey to some, I think, unfortunately, their viewership falls prey to this mis and disinformation, and they're not being well served by those pundits.
How do you think the foreign policy will affect you?
Did you speak with President Biden?
Yes, I guess I did. I was with him maybe a week ago in Los Angeles. Spent a lot of time with him in Los Angeles for a big event that he had as he came back from the G7. I've been spending a lot of time with him over the course of the last few years in very positive circumstances, then some difficult ones, floods, fires, other natural disasters, particularly in California. He's been unbelievably supportive of our state. And I have all the confidence in the world that tonight, on the basis of those interactions as early as a week ago, that he's going to deliver a home run tonight.
Governor, I think the foreign policy will affect this debate, especially the war in Gaza.
This debate, I don't know as any direct relationship. I would like to hear a little bit more from Donald Trump, as opposed to just bland critiques of the Biden policy. What's his alternative strategy? What's his alternative policy? He seems to have found a little bit more support for the Jewish community. It wasn't how many months ago he was having dinner with Nick Fuentes at his house and countenancing anti-Semitism consistently, including emanating from his campaign. I mean, just extraordinary. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that. Love him to apologize for having dinner with Nick Fuentes. Love him to apologize for talking about both sides. Love him to talk about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. I haven't heard one word about that. What he would do differently, specifically, what he would do differently. And so
what do you
I think
he will do differently?
He'll do nothing. He doesn't know. I mean, he's got a secret plan. Only he knows. Only he knows to end the war in Ukraine. He's got a secret plan for everything. I mean, it's just, come on. It's embarrassing. And everyone knows it's embarrassing. And it's trumping Trump. It's not trumping Trump. It's about the future of the free world. It's about democracy. It's about decency. It's about liberty and freedoms. It's serious stuff. Again, why I'm here. Sorry.
Saying Minnesota and Virginia could flip. Are you worried at all about losing blue strongholds?
Nope. We're going to work hard, be vigorous, going to make the case anew. I'll be in those states. I'll be in Virginia, I think, in a week. We're all going out there. We're going to work hard, not just in those states, but many swing states all across this country. And we're not going to turn our back on Georgia. We're not going to turn our back. You saw the president's going to come back to North Carolina tomorrow. So we take nothing for granted. We're raising the resources to go the distance in terms of a vigorous campaign in all of these states, and I'm very confident.
Are you guys going to try to target any
Gotta get him going. Thank you so much.
voters that feel like Donald Trump hasn't taken their vote?
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is a president that is passed 400 bipartisan bills. This is a president delivered on infrastructure week, bipartisan bill, CHIPS and Science Act, a bipartisan bill, on a debt ceiling bill. Thank you, Kevin McCarthy. That reduced the deficit and the debt. The reality is he's been one of the most bipartisan. I know no one will believe that, but that's the record. And that record, by the way, is backed up just the IRA alone. $200 million, you've seen the numbers. $200 million gone out the door. $161 million of those dollars have gone to red districts. Where the representatives have voted against it, they're all taking credit for it. American manufacturing jobs, bringing supply chains home. So that's a pretty moderate agenda from my humble perspective. So by definition, yes, he's reaching out.
There's a lot of concern.
Thanks so much, everybody. We got to get him going.
Stamina and mental health. Are you concerned?
I'm worried about.
Are you concerned about that?
78. I agree. I worry about President Trump's stamina.
No, I'm talking about the president.
Oh, well, I was talking about President Trump as well. I mean, I don't know if you saw President Trump the other day. He was talking about sharks, and he was talking about boats, electric boats that were sinking. It was gibberish I've not heard from him. A little unhinged. Talking about drug tests. I mean, I'm not actually worried about what's happening. There seems to be a decline with President Trump. But moreover,
you have 100% confidence in the president.
Not President Trump. President Biden, by contrast, absolutely. I just gave an example where he's delivered a masterclass in terms of policy, bipartisan policy, a real vision for the future, an economic plan that brings down inflation, continues our unprecedented economic growth. So I care about his state of mind, not his time of life.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody. All right, listening there to some comments from California's Governor Gavin Newsom inside of the spin room ahead of the CNN presidential debate simulcast. Remember, moderated by Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. Tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we will simulcast it here on Live Now from Fox. We're going to step away for a quick commercial break. We'll see you back here right after this.
On CBS News streaming.
Welcome to America Decides, Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
The first presidential debate, hosted by CNN, CBS News 24/7 will cover it live with our political team providing pre- and post-debate analysis. Stream tonight beginning at 5 here on CBS News 24/7.
And with wars raging in Gaza and Ukraine, foreign policy is expected to come up in tonight's debate. CBS News chief foreign affairs correspondent and Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan joins us now. Margaret, of course, no one better to discuss all of this with than you. What is going to be the pitch from both candidates about how they would navigate this increasingly chaotic world that we are seeing in a second term?
Well, Caitlin, it is unique because both of these candidates have served as commander-in-chief. They have a record, but right now the U.S. is facing an incredibly complex threat environment and is no longer the only superpower. So this is a different problem set, and President Biden argues this is the most dangerous moment we've seen since World War II, and that he's uniquely suited to hold together the Western alliance against Russia's Vladimir Putin, who's on this march through Europe, starting with Ukraine, with the help of America's adversaries, Iran and North Korea, as well as China, which has helped rebuild his munitions. Donald Trump argues a counterfactual, that none of this would have ever happened had he been in the Oval Office because leaders feared him. Biden argues the U.S. should lead allies and thus find strength in numbers to challenge China. Trump argues that allies are just exploiting the U.S. and, if you remember, in the 4 years he was president, had threatened to pull troops out of South Korea and Japan, a blind spot potentially in the Pacific, and out of Germany, which would have been a blind spot in Europe. So you will likely see Joe Biden remind people of the Trump record while Trump attacks the moment we are in and what Biden's doing now.
Yeah, and Margaret, you know, most voters that I talk to across the country, no matter where they stand politically, are concerned about everything that you just described here. And I think they want to know, you know, what is the policy?
And Caitlin, we haven't heard a lot of affirmative vision from either candidate, to be frank with you, about what 4 more years would look like. But let's be clear on the problem set. I mean, neither president found a way to stop North Korea's nuclear development, nor have either been able to stop Iran's malign behavior throughout the Middle East. There aren't concrete proposals being offered by either of them on those points. But directionally, they're in the same place when it comes to getting tough on China. Donald Trump takes this hammer approach on the campaign trail. You hear him talking about a 10% across-the-board tariff on goods from China to rebalance trade. He doesn't talk as much about the fact that it would make things more expensive for American consumers, while President Biden argues he likes tariffs on specific things like electric vehicles and to ban the sale of sensitive technology to China. He argues economic policy is foreign policy. And as you know, on the Mideast, Biden has active diplomacy underway to help Israel free hostages and create a Palestinian state, surge in aid. That has also caused some problems with his own Democratic base. With Donald Trump, he's pretty vague on this, on the Middle East and what he would do. On Russia, also vague. He has argued, though, he would bring home U.S. prisoners back from Russia and that he would get Vladimir Putin to stop the war. Hasn't said how he would do that.
All right, Margaret Brennan, thank you so much. We appreciate that, and we will see whether they address all of that tonight. President Biden and former President Trump are expected to tackle a number of issues important to voters during tonight's debate, and we have several of our reporters spread out across the country to help us walk through some of them.
I'm Jolene Kent in Los Angeles, and the economy is a top priority for many voters tonight. And so many people are taking stock of how they're doing financially under President Biden. So our CBS News polling shows that voters overwhelmingly feel that it is harder to buy a house, raise a family, get a good job, or start a business compared to generations before. Now, part of that could be tied to those regular weekly, monthly expenses. Our CBS News Money Watch price tracker shows that since 2019, when Trump was in office, till now, the price of a dozen eggs has nearly doubled. A loaf of bread costs 53% more, and gas prices have jumped 32%. Now, looking at the data since President Biden took office in January of 2021, consumer prices have jumped 20%, according to official government data. And over the last 3.5 years, inflation has come down from its peaks of 9%, and wage growth has outpaced inflation, but it does so just slightly. And those jobs reports you've been seeing have been strong, and unemployment remains at historic lows. It was at 6.4% when Biden took office. It's now down to 4%. But interest rates remain too high for many people to get into the housing market. And there's only one rate cut projected for the rest of this year, and even that is iffy. With rents going up and the cost of homeowners insurance also on the rise, voters will be watching tonight for any relief.
I'm Camilo Montoya Galvez in Tucson, Arizona. Immigration is set to play a major role in this election and during the presidential debate tonight. And there are clearly two starkly different visions on this issue for this debate. We know that former President Donald Trump has made immigration a pillar to his political career, and that has continued to be the case during this campaign cycle. He has blamed President Biden for the record number of migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border illegally in recent years, and has vowed a radical shift in policy if re-elected. That includes mass deportations, an end to birthright citizenship, and ideological screenings for new legal immigrants. Meanwhile, President Biden does not tend to speak on immigration as often as former President Trump, but has recently taken sweeping executive action on the issue. Just weeks after severely restricting asylum here at the U.S.-Mexico border, President Biden announced a new policy that will grant legal status to the undocumented spouses of American citizens. That approach, Biden officials argue, is a more balanced one than what former President Donald Trump is offering on immigration.
I'm Shauna Mizell here in Atlanta, Georgia, where former President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden are set to face off tonight in a presidential debate. And you can almost certainly expect abortion to be a topic that is brought up in the debate tonight. It has been a huge and integral part of the Biden campaign's re-election bid. He has repeatedly tied statewide abortion bans to the legacy of former President Donald Trump. They blame Trump for these abortion bans, saying that he nominated the Supreme Court justices who voted to overturn Roe versus Wade with the Dobbs decision. And speaking of the Dobbs decision, earlier this week was the second anniversary of that decision, but another Supreme Court decision coming out just today, actually also related to abortion in the EMTALA case, which has to do with patients getting abortions in emergency situations, even in states where the procedure is banned. So we will have to see just how this shakes out tonight, but we know that abortion was also brought up in the 2020 election between Biden and Trump.
All right, Jolene Kent, Camilo Montoya Galvez, and Shauna Mizell, thank you very much. And coming up, what can we expect from former President Donald Trump tonight? Well, we have Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds standing by to join us for a preview. You're streaming America Decides.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Todd.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun. But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Nations are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's going to be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift, stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app. The first presidential debate, hosted by CNN, CBS News 24/7 will cover it live, with our political team providing pre- and post-debate analysis. Stream tonight beginning at 5, here on CBS News 24/7.
And welcome back to the Spin Room here in Atlanta ahead of the presidential debate. We have an ally of former President Trump. Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds is here with us for a preview. Now, I know you're here for the debate, but you were also here yesterday campaigning for Donald Trump, specifically trying to talk to black voters here. President Biden won black voters by 80% in the last election. As you see it, what kind of percentage do you think that Donald Trump could get? What are you kind of looking for in terms of success with this voter group?
I would say success is anywhere from 20 to 25%. You got to remember, you're talking 2-3 presidential cycles ago, the black vote was 90-10, 95-5. And I think it's important, not just in the black community, but in all of America, that all of our communities start to look at the policies and the impact of those policies for just their lives, for their communities, and for the nation going forward. I think especially with black men, there is movement amongst black men leaving the Democrat Party, moving to the Republican Party. In Atlanta yesterday, talked with various black men, independents who are now leading Donald Trump, former Democrats, now Republicans, obviously going Donald Trump. So the events, having those real conversations, sometimes those tough conversations, that's what you are going to have to do in 2024 and going forward in our politics, because there's going to be an end to the monolithic viewpoint of voting blocks and demographic groups. It's going to be about issues. It's going to be ideas. It's going to be about making sure that people's lives are better going forward.
We've seen in our polling that most Republicans, 70%, want Donald Trump to be polite, to kind of tone it down tonight. Do you want that? Is that what you want to see?
Well, look, I'll tell you, that's how he's been on the campaign trail. I mean, obviously, people will pull a clip of 30 seconds, but he talks to a group for an hour. And so the Donald Trump that I have seen, whether it's South Carolina, Philadelphia, the South Bronx, Detroit, he has been laser focused on the American people, the working men and women of our country, the forgotten men and women in our country. what it means to be able to get inflation under control, to have an economy where you can build generational wealth, to be secure in our streets, to secure our border, to be respected around the globe. That's where he's been. I actually think the vitriol in this debate is going to come from Joe Biden, because what does he have to run on? If you go by his agenda, piece by piece, it's not been a success for the American people.
I want to ask you about the issue of abortion. You come from Florida. There's a 6-week abortion ban there. Donald Trump has said that he would not support federal limits on abortion. Do you think that's the right call?
I do, because a couple of things. Number one, abortion is the most personal and frankly divisive topic in our politics. Highly emotional, highly personal to women across the United States of America. Donald Trump sees it where we are today as a country. He's pro-life, but he understands that the federal government is too broad and too big to come up with just some national strategy. Let the states be the laboratories of democracy as they were set forth in our country. Number two, I will tell you, medical procedures are regulated at the state level, not the federal level. The Supreme Court in 1973 decided to regulate abortion in and of itself, but every other medical procedure is regulated at the state level. I think the state approach is the right way to go. You're going to have citizens engaging with their governors, engaging with their legislatures to come up with the right mix in each individual state.
Are you concerned, though, about the way that you've seen this issue is a potent political issue?
Yeah.
People have proved
lives in a matter of minutes.
48 Hours Crime Time double feature, Saturday 9, 8 Central on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
When you realize bloating and discomfort don't have to be routine, everything changes. Try Rise Mushroom Coffee with 6 functional mushrooms that heal your gut, improve digestion, and boost immunity. A better routine starts here.
Whatever you do it for less at Harbor Freight.
Stakes in this election couldn't be higher.
November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country.
This is a CBS News special, America Decides, Campaign 24, the first presidential debate. Now reporting from CBS Election Headquarters in Times Square, Norah O'Donnell.
Good evening. The first presidential debate of the 2024 general election is just 1 hour away. This historic event between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump is the first ever matchup between a sitting president and his predecessor. And it will also be the earliest presidential debate in U.S. history and feature the 2 oldest candidates to ever face off on the debate stage. The debate, hosted by CNN, will also be the first time either candidate has been on a debate stage since 2020. If you remember, 4 years ago, these candidates held 2 unforgettable debates leading up into the election, both filled with insults, interruptions, and a lack of civility. Well, a lot has happened since Biden and Trump last met. Biden was elected president. There was an assault on our nation's capital. The Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, declaring the constitutional right to an abortion no longer exists. The wars between in Ukraine and Israel. And then nearly a month ago, Trump became the first president, current or former, ever to be convicted of a felony. We've got new reporting tonight, so let's go right to our team in Atlanta. And first to Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. And Nancy, the Biden campaign, is it about like the 3 C's, choice, contrast, and character tonight?
No question, Nora. He's got a high bar in front of him because he needs to show to anyone who's watching in this audience at home, around the country, that he's got the fire in him to go another 4 years. The president arrived here in Atlanta this afternoon. He was greeted by a crowd of supporters. He did a little jog over to them. He's now at a downtown hotel with the First Lady, who arrived separately after doing an event in Virginia. She will be at the debate tonight. I was speaking to a Biden aide a short time ago. He said that the president is in a good mood. He's well prepared. And he said something interesting. He said that President Biden is not going to shy away tonight, Nora, from fact-checking Donald Trump. He fully expects that Trump will say things that are not true. And when that happens, he is going to point it out when it's his turn to speak, of course. He'll talk about why he thinks it's untrue. He's not going to dwell on it. He'll then pivot to his message, but he doesn't want to let it lie if Donald Trump says things, misrepresents his record, or says things about the state of the country that he thinks are false.
And Nancy Cordes, describe for everyone where you are right now.
I'm in the spin room. We are across the street, Nora, from where this debate is going to be taking place. Remember that this is a debate without an audience, so that room is going to be pretty empty. It's going to have the debate moderators and the 2 candidates, and so everyone else is here in the spin room. There are a number of Biden surrogates who will be here to talk to reporters, to tell us all about what a great job he has done, including California Governor Gavin Newsom and Amy Klobuchar, senator from Minnesota, and interestingly, Mary Trump, a relative of Donald Trump who has been critical of him for many years, but who is now coming out strongly in favor of Biden in one of the most public ways possible.
And that's why the dynamic will be so different inside. Nancy Cordes, thank you. Let's check in now with Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa. I know you've got some new reporting out of the Trump campaign. What have they been saying today?
Great to be with you, Nora, here in Atlanta. It's evident to me, talking to the Trump campaign, that they want their candidate to stay cool tonight. They know that President Biden is likely going to be on the attack. So they're advising him behind the scenes. They're saying, look, this is a 90-minute marathon. Keep your cool. Yes, you can defend yourself on January 6th and that criminal conviction in New York if President Biden brings it up, but turn the attention back to the economy, back to the immigration issue and border security. Talk about trade. Those are the issues they believe former President Trump will be able to put together a real victory on the electoral map come November. As for President Biden, I just keep hearing from his aides, it's not about age. It's Nancy, to build on her great reporting. It's about the economy and democracy. Look for him to try to get under former President Trump's skin, I'm told, talking about January 6th and that criminal conviction. It's interesting, though, Nora. There's a lot of spin going on here inside the so-called spin room. But I took a walk around downtown Atlanta. A lot of people feeling inflationary pain. They're feeling pain about the economy, about where their lives at this moment. Georgia's now a swing state, and the campaigns know that. With all the spin, with all the theater tonight, it comes down to kitchen table issues, how people feel in their homes.
It's an important point. The pocketbook issues always matter. Robert Costa, thank you so much. And this debate could mark a turning point in the race for president. I want to turn to Chief Political Analyst John Dickerson. And John, we've covered a lot of these debates and momentous occasions together. This is early, and the Biden team wanted an early debate.
They did. They wanted to be a choice between two candidates, not a referendum on the incumbent. When you've got a race that's this tight, anything could tip it in one way or the other. We know, tonight may end and it might not change the state of the race. But when it's this tight, you can't leave anything to chance, which is why the president has spent many days working on this campaign. Couple of things that strike me about this campaign, or this debate, I should say. We know more about these two candidates and their records under pressure than any candidates who've ever debated before. So there are not going to be any reinventions tonight. But the candidates can reframe their records in a way that might speak to voters in a new way, particularly to that question on the economy. And then you have the question of performance. Voters want to take the measure themselves with their own two eyes about the questions of age and temperament. Then finally, this question, Nora. When one candidate centers their campaign on a lie, Donald Trump saying that the election was stolen from him, how do you have a debate where the point of the debate is to measure whether candidates see things clearly and whether their solutions are not deceptive or delusional?
John Dickerson, nobody does it better than you than setting up, of course, what we'll be watching tonight and the stakes. And as John was saying, the debate, this is not going to be like one we're used to, because this is the first time in more than 35 years that a televised general election presidential debate between the two leading candidates has not been sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is airing on CNN and the network, and both candidates agreed to the following rules. The debate will run 90 minutes with 2 breaks. Candidates may not discuss the debate with anyone during breaks. There will be no opening statements. Each man's mic will be muted when it's not his turn to speak, and Biden and Trump get 2 minutes for answers. Rebuttals are 1 minute long, and then a response. One of the biggest changes, no audience scale, and I think that will change things, especially, I think, for Trump.
On both sides.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting that they're going to mute the mics to see how that's going to work, because 2 minutes can be either a very long time or it can be a very short time, depending on how it's going. Yeah. We shall all see tonight. I've been excited about this all day, Nora. Have you? I've been looking forward to being here, sitting here with all of us sitting and discussing. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm very excited.
Agreed.
You may remember back in 2020, we all remember this, the debates were full of interruptions and arguments, and the moderators had trouble reining in the candidates. One count, there were 145 interruptions on the part of Donald Trump. We'll see. A coin flip determined lectern placement and order of closing statements. The Biden campaign chose to stand the president at the right lectern. So when you're looking at your screen tonight, he'll be on the right. Trump's campaign then chose for the former president to have the final word. I was wondering about that choice, Nora, because I've always thought during a trial, you always want to be the last one to have the closing say.
Right.
Were you surprised that he made that choice?
I was
a bit.
I was, and maybe we'll find out tonight what the strategy is behind that.
I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about that, John Dickerson, later on.
Well, one of the things that at least we know about Ron Klain, who helped do debate prep, former chief of staff for Biden, did debate prep for him. One of the things they learned in the Obama years, because he helped Obama, is that impressions lock in quickly.
Yeah.
So it's not the closing statements you want to be good and solid on. You want to be good and solid right away at the beginning for two reasons. Voters make impressions and they lock them in. Also, social media. This is going to be talked about on our coverage, but then also out in the ether. People will start sending around their impressions. You want to make the good first impression.
But does it matter if you're on the right or the left, where you're standing? Does that matter? That's what I'm hung up on.
We'll see once we see them out there. It may become obvious.
All right.
Want to bring in Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan. And what do you expect tonight will be some of the chief contrast points? Choice, reproductive rights?
That'll definitely be one of the issues that is central in this campaign, but it's one that, frankly, Joe Biden, the president, is not very comfortable discussing. He frames it typically as reproductive health care. He may lean into that language rather than the issue of abortion itself. Donald Trump has also tried to make a strategic decision to neutralize the political force behind the abortion issue and said it's an issue for states and not necessarily at the federal level. But one thing that I'm watching here is we have two commanders-in-chief, people with job experience standing up there. And they're going to be arguing, as Donald Trump has again and again, I'm the man to keep you out of the next war. And Joe Biden is standing up there very proud of his foreign policy record, saying, I'm the guy who has kept you out of that. And I'm keeping this Western alliance together with scotch tape and duct tape at this point. But this is my chief, sign. Judge me on that ability so far to navigate an incredibly complex threat environment the United States is facing at a time when the U.S. is no longer the only superpower. So when we talk about going back to the way it was, we are just facing a completely new set of challenges, an incredibly full inbox for this commander-in-chief, Nora. And that's one of the things I think voters need to keep in mind as you hear discussion of all these national security issues, whether it's the border, whether it's China, something directionally they agree on, or whether it's the threat from Russia or other adversaries.
Yeah, the foreign policy, I think, will be really interesting tonight as well. Margaret Brennan, let's bring in Ed O'Keefe. You cover the White House, and you're there a lot. I mean, this is a tough moment for President Biden. That campaign, that White House believe that he's accomplished a lot legislatively, that he's brought inflation down, even though people are still hurting. And yet, what they think, right, is that their accomplishments are not resonating with voters.
They aren't, if you look at our polling. And I thought it was interesting.
He is great at good television, so but he won't have that audience factor, something that he really feeds on when you see him at his rallies, or when you saw him today when he landed in Atlanta and there were dozens and dozens of people waiting on the tarmac, fans and his voters waiting on the tarmac, cheering his name when he went walking down the stairs. So there are elements that both candidates are good at and that both can play off of. We'll see. We'll see if there's an interaction or exchange or a handshake or a level of civility for this debate.
All right. Fox 5 Atlanta's Christine Sparrow. Can't thank you enough. Have a good debate night. Talk soon.
Thanks so much.
All right. In the meantime here, we do want to take our first commercial break of the hour. I hope you found that conversation informative. We're going to be having conversations like that in this hour in the run-up to the CNN presidential debate, the first debate between Biden and Trump. This cycle, like Christine mentioned, yes, it is earlier than most cycles, and we'll get to why that is. Why would the Biden and the Trump campaign agree to something like this? So we have a whole host and staple of great political reporters lined up to answer your questions, to answer my questions about what to expect on this very historic night. We'll see you in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. I want to thank you for being with us. If you're new to Live Now, this is what we do. We bring you these events live, raw, and unfiltered, especially on big nights like tonight. We are simulcasting the CNN presidential debate starting in about 45 minutes. This is a look inside the spin room there at Georgia Tech, and we're going to be bringing in, like we've been speaking with, a whole host of some of our political reporters and friends to talk about the significance of a night like this, not only for an election year, but for American history. We're going to do that, though, with our friend at Fox 13 Tampa. That's Craig Patrick. He joins me. Craig, good to see you. Happy debate day here. I think this is shaping up to be quite a moment, a singular moment in American history. Do you agree with that? I don't want to put too much importance, because debates can have a muted effect, so to speak, especially one being this early in the cycle. It's late June. The next one's not until September. That is a large expanse of time for Americans to forget what happened tonight. How are you feeling about this?
Just like you are, Andrew, thank you so much, and for that nuanced perspective. You are absolutely right. On one hand, this is quite historic. This is a rare moment in history. First off, to have a president and former president like this squaring off. We just haven't had that in modern history, and we weren't around in the days of Benjamin Harrison and Grover Cleveland to know how any of that might have played out. So this is all very new to us on one hand, and it's starting earlier than it ever has at the behest of President Biden, and Trump agreed to it. So the timing also is very different. That makes this night extraordinarily unique. And we know we certainly had some interesting moments the first time they matched up, and they have not been face-to-face ever since that campaign completed and President Biden won. So all of that does make this historic. However, we do run the risk of overplaying.
Make sure we will run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight.
Collective ownership is powerful.
To keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 Acres and a Mule, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
People with developmental disabilities were once sequestered by the hundreds of thousands in institutions.
Many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower.
Disability activists have since torn down barriers blocking them from living at home or in the community.
We conclude that Title II of the ADA requires states to provide community-based treatment for persons with mental disabilities.
But of the 16,000 people who remain in state-operated institutions, half are in 5 states, and Illinois is one of them.
I don't want to live in the institution. It makes me feel discriminated against.
Do you think there are people living in institutions in Illinois that don't need to be living there?
Yeah, because they're proving it as soon as they get out.
Good evening. The television and radio stations of the United States and their affiliated stations are proud to provide facilities for a discussion of issues in the current political campaign by the 2 major candidates for the presidency.
Look at that. That was the first ever televised presidential debate in 1960. It was hosted by CBS with moderators from all the networks and was the last time there was no audience at a presidential debate. Welcome back to CBS News. And tonight we will hear the presidential candidates discuss the direction of America and the issues that matter most. This is arguably the most important debate since that 1960 debate. And we should note also that there's been little movement in the polls between President Biden and Donald Trump. Could this debate change the trajectory? Let's bring in our polling director, Anthony Salvanto. And I know, Anthony, you have new polling out tonight. What are we learning?
I do. And one word for this race, Nora, like you said, it's close. Look, this is the national number. That's well within the margin of error. This is effectively tied. But what matters, to remind everybody, are what we call the battleground states, the closest states, the ones that will decide this. I'm going to show show you a string of those, and this is just even race after even race. Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, all states Joe Biden won last time, but we're close. North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. That is your story for context, but the question is why, and what do people want tonight? So watch this. Democrats say they want Joe Biden tonight to take a more forceful tone. Why is that? Well, Ed mentioned earlier about that apprehension. Let me show you this. Among Joe Biden's supporters, their top reason for voting for Biden is, they say, to oppose Donald Trump. So I think you'll see Joe Biden tonight try to make this about Donald Trump, because he does better when people think it's a referendum on Donald Trump. But Trump, for his part, let me show you this. His advantage is that people remember the economy under him well. So take a look at this big gap. More people think they will be financially better off with Donald Trump as president than if Joe Biden wins. So you expect Donald Trump to press that advantage as well. And so what does that mean? That means Republicans tonight say they want Donald Trump to take a more polite tone. They know he's got the base, but he's got that overall edge on the economy. Final point, Nora. We asked people, could you learn anything tonight that you think could change your mind? And it's 11% who say they definitely could. That's not a big number, but it comes back to that idea of close, Nora.
Really interesting, Anthony Salvanto. Thank you so much. We've also learned from Anthony's polling the importance of abortion rights or reproductive rights. And Margaret, just today, that ruling from the Supreme Court about Idaho, which is one of 6 states in America that has a near total ban, where they've lost 20% of their OBGYNs because doctors there are concerned about being prosecuted for providing health care, essentially, to women who may be having a miscarriage. How do you see this playing out tonight on stage and as voters go to the polls?
And that brings us back to that Supreme Court decision that sent the issue back to the states. And Donald Trump is likely going to say that's where it needs to stay and try not to engage on some of the substance that you just laid out in these tough decisions. That come down to, is it health care that is life-saving or not in that specific case?
And can I just say why I think that's interesting, too? Because then shouldn't Joe Biden make the argument, oh, well, I sued Idaho to protect the rights of women and who are in a dire medical situation. Would you not, Donald Trump, have challenged the state of Idaho to protect women?
And it'll be really interesting to see how much he engages on this. But Joe Biden, as president, rarely discusses the issue of abortion. And he has said, I'm just not big on it, was one of his quotes. Some of this has to do with his religious conviction. But to your point, this is something that is going to be a political force, no matter how comfortable. This is an uncomfortable topic, period, to talk about. But we know that in the midterms, abortion was a driving force in those races in a way that helped Democrats. They held on to the Senate, if you remember. And the party is hoping that when it comes to the presidential race, it'll also benefit Joe Biden, that it will drive up turnout. And we want to show you some graphics here. The majority of Americans, 60%, according to CBS polling, believe abortion should be legal in all or most cases. And in a tight race, that enthusiasm for an issue may be persuasive for a voter who otherwise might not be super enthusiastic about the candidate himself. And Democrats are looking at 11 states this fall, they're on your screen, where the issue of abortion access will literally be on the ballot as a standalone issue. And it includes battlegrounds like Arizona and Nevada. And this single issue could make a difference. Now, the Trump campaign has tried to neutralize the political force by arguing, as we were just talking about, that the Supreme Court sent it back to the states to decide on legality and that there shouldn't be a federal policy. But that frustration has frustrated some of the religious conservatives in the Republican Party who want Donald Trump to attempt a national ban or restrictions. Joe Biden's campaign has just tried to harness the political power by arguing that it was Trump who put those Supreme Court justices on that court that struck down Roe versus Wade, and that reproductive health care of all types, IVF, access to birth control, all of it's under threat if Trump is reelected. Now, that's a message, though, where you will be more likely to hear from Vice President Harris if she was on that stage. She's been delivering it for the campaign. You will perhaps hear reproductive health care from Joe Biden, but he may avoid discussing abortion directly. Now, one of the things that we also see in our polling here is that abortion access, it is important as a galvanizing force, but it ranks lower than the economy, lower than inflation, lower than the border, lower than the state of democracy, and lower than guns. So it is a galvanizing force, but it is not everything here.
I would say, Nora, being on the road in Arizona in the last few months, I've heard from liberal and Democratic activists in that state who see these polls that show Trump ahead, maybe 1 or 2 points, and they say, no, don't worry about it. We have more volunteers than we know what to do with, who are willing to work with us on knocking on doors and getting people to vote on the abortion issue specifically. They're turning in the petition ballot or the petition signatures next week to get that issue on the ballot officially. They expect it to pass overwhelmingly and to help drive support. And that in Arizona, in Nevada, to some extent in Florida, although the Biden campaign doesn't consider it a battleground, continue across the country confidence among Democrats that they will get the voters they need in a pinch over that issue.
And you often hear, though, that people will vote with their pocketbooks, which means your money and your wallet, whether you have it, whether you don't have it, everybody wants it. That's why the economy really matters. That's one of the main issues for voters. CBS News found while wage growth outpaces inflation, it does so just barely, which is partly why people say. There she is, Jolene Kent, joins us now. Jolene, help us understand this, because the numbers show that the economy is well, but that is not how people feel. Why is that?
Yeah. Exactly. The numbers are very strong, mostly. If you take a look at what we've seen so far, if you invest in the stock market, now not everyone does, the S&P 500 is up 16% year to date. We're still sitting at these historically low unemployment numbers at about 4%. We saw the Dow closing at another 1-month high. And of course, inflation, that has cooled off from its 9% peak, and we're down now at 3.3%. So overall, the numbers are strong. You've seen these hot jobs reports that we've been reporting on. And so all of the numbers seem to point to things going in the right direction, but not everyone's feeling that when you just dig a little bit deeper, Gail.
So do you think that the Biden administration needs to do a better job on its messaging? Because they certainly tell us that, but people still don't get that message.
Yeah, it's interesting. I spoke to a voter in Minnesota today, an independent voter who's really on the fence. She voted for Obama in 2008, and she voted for Trump in 2020. And she basically says for her, it comes down to how much she's paying at the grocery store, among other issues. The economy is really important. So if you take a look at our Money Watch price tracker, you can see why she's feeling that pinch. She's got 4 kids. She lives in Plymouth, Minnesota. A dozen eggs, double the price compared to pre-pandemic levels. Of course, that was when President Trump was in office. A loaf of bread up 50%, a pound of coffee up 40%. Gas, of course, you feel that, up 30%. Now, when you look back at just President Biden's term in office so far, inflation is indeed up 20%. And that's where we see, even though wage growth does outpace inflation, it's not by very much. And then if you pivot and you take a look at the housing market, overall housing prices far outpace wage growth. That's where people are feeling a lot of frustration as well. They want to buy a house, interest rates continue to be high, and you've got maybe one rate cut on the table from the Fed. We'll see.
All right, Jolene, thank you very much. And while we're at it, the cost of batteries are up, too. Was that CBS AAA batteries? They're up. It's a little annoying.
I know. We eat a lot of eggs in my house because I have 3 teenagers, so I've noticed that as well, Gil. All right. When we come back, we'll look at what lessons the candidates may have learned from that last presidential debate. Remember those debates in 2020? They were hot. You're watching CBS News.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team. Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen.
attention. The candidates have been coming through here for months. The vice president has been here. So definitely, it's hard to avoid.
All right, there, Kevin Stewart, live for us in Atlanta. Kevin, thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
All right, in the meantime here, we do want to just put up these debate rules to remind all of you what is at stake, what the parties agreed to. Here they are. 2 commercial breaks. Also, the candidates cannot interact with campaign staff throughout this 90-minute period. Also, the podium positions were determined already by a coin flip. We'll get that news to you in just a moment. And also, the mics are going to be muted outside of the speaking time for both Biden and Trump. Also, no prompts or pre-written notes, but a pen, paper, and water will be provided as well. We are at the bottom of the hour. Let's take yet another quick commercial break. We have live pictures inside there of the spin room at Georgia Tech. Also, a cool live vantage point outside there in Atlanta. And it looks like the whole town has all of the debate decals. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Novel. A gripping true crime original, 48 Hours, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform. You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85. Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dragon capsule here in space.
Sightseers in space, the thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space, it was so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory.
There have been 4 fatal accidents. That's a 1% fatal accident rate.
Might make you look before you launch.
If you had 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we'd have a public crisis.
Space tourism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
You're going to pack the court?
Make sure you, in fact, let people know you're senators. I'm not going to answer the question because the question is
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe? Who's on your list?
Gentlemen, I think
this is so unprecedented.
He's going to pack the court.
We have
We
have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right.
Remember that debate and all the interruptions? That was the first time that they debated. That was September 29th, 2020. Let's talk about the lessons from that debate for this rematch. John Dickerson, well, clearly the microphone is going to change things tonight, so there won't be as many interruptions.
That will change things. It's questionable about what Donald Trump learned. We know, those of us who covered the Trump presidency, is that there were often moments where his aides, his family went to him, said, you got to tone it down. You've got to be more presidential. And it would stick for very short periods of time. But his gut is something he believes in. Aides have variously talked about his times at rallies as creating a sense of giving him oxygen. He wants to be that person. That person was the one interrupting Joe Biden. The problem for Trump in that debate was that people thought, and the polling showed this, we don't want 4 more years of that in our living room. Joe Biden was there as a representative of returning to the norms of the presidency. We'll see how, and if any of those lessons conveyed to tonight.
Because people thought, oh my gosh, it's the pandemic. Life is too chaotic. I kind of like this Joe Biden. He seems more calming than Donald Trump. Those were the stylistic, at least, differences. There was a lot more, obviously, but that's what I'm saying, that debate and the chaoticness of it, I think, probably stuck with people.
And as I recall, Nora, at the time when he said, because we're all raised in houses where your parents tell you, do not tell anyone to shut up. At the time when he said shut up, I think most people actually understood why he felt that, because he was so exasperated trying to get a word in edgewise. I'd be curious to know where in the debate that moment came. I don't remember it as we sit here today.
It was about halfway through.
It was halfway through.
And even in the room, because we were up in the rafters watching this whole thing, you could just feel it in the room. Everyone was just like, oh gosh, is this what it's going to be like, you know, when they meet again? The fact that the microphone is muted, first of all, we've all heard from people, sources, friends, family, how excited they are that they're finally implementing that rule.
Who do you think
how does
benefits?
that change? I don't know.
You don't.
And I really wonder if either of them has practiced for that phenomenon, because our friends at CNN pointed out yesterday how it's going to work. And if it goes as they say it will, you literally will see lips moving, but you will not be able to hear them. So do they practice facial expressions? Do they, scoff? Or do they just stand there and shake their head? No, it's not true. They're going to have to wait their turn. And that changes the dynamic in all these things. Because what do we always seize on? It's those moments of friction.
And that is the theater, and that is about the impression. And if you remember in that period in time back in 2020, Joe Biden was running on this argument of competence in the midst of chaos, restoring order. I mean, we didn't have a vaccine then. We were in the midst of this pandemic that had upended our lives, and that's what's so interesting about Anthony's polling about the economy and people remembering it fondly under Donald Trump, forgetting he was the one who shut down the economy because of what was happening. But I think in our polling, one of the things that's so interesting, Ed, is when we talk about the seriousness of the issues facing the country now, and we are only hearing the theater, we haven't heard, when you look at the polling, 75% of voters say Trump should explain his plans for the future. 69% say Biden should. That implies they haven't heard the affirmative argument for the future of the country.
We haven't heard from either of them.
Well, in fact, the studies have been done by even conservative-leaning economists that Trump's plan to expand tariffs would actually lead to an increase in inflation, correct? Yes. And so that is something that hasn't, that sort of sharp policy debate that I think that voters are craving. Wait a minute, I do want to know what their plan is for the future. How are they going to make my life better and my children's lives better? What are they going to do for me, the taxpayer?
And also, this goes back to, did you prepare for the debate or didn't you prepare for the debate? You can't riff your way through a presidency. You can't just wing it and be kind of in the moment when you're dealing with things like alliances that need to be tended when you have invasions happening. You can't just decide on your economic policy on the fly when you've got massive moving forces globally, also with the advent of artificial intelligence. You have to have a plan. You have to think things through. You have to anticipate. And all of that comes down to this stylistic difference between the two of them. So it is theater review, but it attaches to a crucial thing about the presidency, which is that it is a job that you cannot just improvise your way through.
Don't you find it hard to believe that he's done no preparation? I mean, I know he says that he's prepared for this his whole life when he goes out on rallies, but this is such a big moment for both of them. Because the research, I know Margaret and Nora are like, yeah, I can kind of believe it.
What in his previous behavior would lead you to believe that he's cracking the books?
Because I just think that this is different. There is so much at stake for both of them. There always is. But in this particular case, Joe Biden has to bring it to show, look, that I'm physically capable of doing this. Donald Trump has to show that I can be, quote, presidential, that I can, quote, behave. Well, he can do that.
Yeah.
He has to, they both have something to prove to the audience tonight.
We're going to find out in less than 25 minutes.
And I can't wait.
I know, exactly. And when we come back, we're going to talk about these key battleground states, how each campaign thinks they can achieve victory in the race to 270 electoral votes. Remember, that's what it's about, these 7 battleground states. We'll talk about it. You're watching CBS News.
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
the justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what it means for those chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Okay, let's go. You guys good?
Hey.
All right, we good?
Keep going. It's the clock. It's ticking.
Off we go.
60 minutes. 60 minutes.
60 minutes.
It's time for 60 Minutes, Sundays on CBS.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing.
Obama about Russia as a threat. I think everyone remembers that. But as far as policy is concerned, you know, people remember the personal showbiz element moments to these debates. That is what you just referred to, Brian. So if there's going to be a moment like that tonight, and we're going to be talking about it maybe till the next debate in September, are they make or break, Sherry? Say Biden does something, say he forgets someone's name. Is that an element in the Biden campaign where there's this zero-sum factor that, oh, it's over? Are there going to be moments like that?
Well, you don't know what's going to happen over these 90 minutes, but a very strong performance will be important for President Biden. I know we've all read that he's been at Camp David. He's been preparing. I like how Donald Trump said he's out in a cabin, or, you know, he's in a bunker, his description. And even the Trump campaign trying to manage expectations and all of a sudden how they used to make fun of President Biden. And now they're saying he's a good debater. You know, they're trying
democracy.
The most important stories on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis.
You're going to hear a lot of reporting.
It is clear.
Oh, there he is. That guy got thrown out of the
Gun control, the economy, education. Both sides of the political aisle fight it out for power.
Bringing you the analysis that you need.
Thoughtfully, with context.
Be part of the conversation.
On CBS News streaming.
Welcome to America Decides, Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Welcome back to Debate Night coverage here on CBS. We are just moments away from that debate, and we're learning President Biden has just arrived at the debate site. After the debate, President Biden is going to head to North Carolina for a rally tomorrow. North Carolina is one of 7 states where this election will be decided. Now, of those 7 states, Joe Biden won 6 of them in the last election. The one state that he did not win was North Carolina, right, Major Garrett? But I know you're going to break it down for us because I am so obsessed with these 7 states.
Exactly. Good evening, Nora. Good evening, everyone. I know it feels a little early to bring back our old friend, the Electoral College map, but look, we have a presidential debate in June, so it gets early around here with the campaign 2024.
Wow.
So, stop me if you've heard this before. Who wins this election is going to come down to 7 battleground states. Nora just referred to them. What are they? Let's go through them once again. Nevada,
Let's
Arizona,
go through all the
Wisconsin,
battleground
Michigan,
states for the 12th
Pennsylvania,
time
as Nora just
since we
mentioned,
started
North
filming
Carolina,
the debate
as
4
well as
hours
Georgia.
ago.
Now, in 2020, Biden won 6 of those states. So
it should be really
we
good.
asked each campaign, what do they think is the easiest path
We really
for
think
them
that
to achieve
Arizona
victory?
is likely to get hacked
with the
this year.
incumbent
We think
President
that looks
Biden. Now, if
good
he wins
for
all the lean
potentially
and likely
Biden and
Democratic
potentially
states
Trump.
on our friend the map,
Georgia,
he
we
just
know,
needs
will be a
to win the
bloodbath.
states the campaign
Common Georgia W, of
affectionately
course.
calls the blue wall.
North
That's
Carolina,
Wisconsin, Michigan,
everybody's a
and
loser
Pennsylvania.
there. They'll
President
almost certainly
also,
vote for
again,
Biden.
need to pick up the one electoral vote
Or Trump.
from Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. That would put him at exactly
Let's see, what else we got?
270 electoral votes. We all know
Nevada,
that's the
they love to
magic number. Now
gamble.
let's
They might
look at the
gamble on
side
Trump.
of the
They
equation.
might gamble on
If he
bottom.
wins all the lean and likely Republican
Biden.
states he won
Oops.
4 years ago,
Should probably
the
not call him
campaign
bottom.
feels their clearest path to victory, hold North Carolina, which he won in 2020, and then
What's up,
flip
Harrison?
battleground
How you
states
fellas
Georgia
doing out there?
and Pennsylvania. That would bring Trump right
Everybody doing
to
good out there?
270.
Doing good? Doing good?
Of course, we all know the easiest
Well, that's
path to
good.
victory is not always how
Good to
elections
hear.
play out. So here's at least one
Thank
more
the Holy
scenario.
Spirit.
Let's
All
say
right.
Trump carries every state
Let's
he
see
won
what
in
CBS
2020.
says. Because Fox is boring. Oh, wait, this is CBS. Oh, Fox is even worse. CBS, come on. I
Along
believe
with the
in you. Let's go live.
Arizona and Georgia, he would have 272 electoral votes. and be returned to the Oval Office. Nora and everyone, back to you.
Major, thank you. Gail?
Hey, there could be 100 people with that name.
CBS News political contributors, Democratic strategist Joel Payne.
Don't listen to Matt.
And Republican
He's crazy.
strategist Terry Sullivan. Guys, good to see you both.
Hey there,
hello. Hello.
Wow.
Joel, we're going to start with you. What do you think Biden needs to do
This is just
tonight to win this
amazing.
debate?
Well, I think, Gail, there are 2 C's, contrast and consolidation. The president needs to focus on consolidating.
There are 3 C's, constipation, contrast, and consolidation. If Biden is able to keep himself constipated and avoid defecating himself in public locations, he might pull out. Alternatively, if Trump is able to keep the poop in his mouth from falling out with a little bit of constipation, a little bit of that first C,
presidents with 2 very different visions
that would be best.
of America. And I think if Joe Biden is able to put that forward, he and his campaign will feel very confident that they have a successful night tonight.
Who's older?
We'll see. You know,
Biden?
Terry,
Biden's older by 2?
Donald Trump could almost say the exact same thing. What does
Oh
it
man, I
look
can't
like
wait. This
for
is
him
going to be fantastic.
You know, in my experience, Gail, of prepping candidates for these debates is you've got both a strategic goal and a tactical goal. And the
I love the slightly patriotic music in the background. Can we get a flag? I'm going to get a flag in here. Hold on.
And that's really important.
Oh, we need to get a counter for how often either one of them fucks up. All right, so this one will be called Trump.
Trump needs to make this about the issues that voters care about and that he's leading on, like the economy, inflation, crime.
How many points they gonna get?
Securing
What you guys think?
Those are the issues that
Let's
he's
go select
really,
a crazy font.
winning on at the moment, and that voters
Consolas.
care about the most, and
Trump.
prosecute
There we
the
go.
case against Joe Biden for doing a poor job on
Give
those
him a
issues.
nice little
And I think he can do
scorecard
that.
right there.
Terry, I think you're so right about a viral moment because for people that don't watch the whole debate like we intend to do, what they rely on are those
We're
clips
going to
that
have
they
to
see
add a
on the news
background
the
to
very
this.
next
It's
day.
just
Thank you both.
too dark. Let's change the
All
font
right,
up.
Ed, we'll give you a sneak peek into how we
There we go.
plan to fact
There it
check
is.
candidates.
That's visible. All right, hold on. Wait. Let me change that background opacity. Oh, fucking opacity. Word of the day, gentlemen. Beautiful. All right, now let's get a Biden counter going. So for reference, we're going to give them points every time they say something that isn't retarded, which is going to be quite difficult, I think. I think both of these guys really struggle with that aspect, and we'll see how this goes.
Experience thought-provoking.
All right, everybody got 0. What color should Biden be?
Truly original reporting.
I feel like he's red, maybe?
Because there's always
No.
something new under the
He's
sun.
old. Is there like a light tan? There we go.
Sunday morning.
That's perfect. A light tan Biden.
At this moment, terrorists could be
A young, tan, hairy leg Biden.
A counter-terrorist system that
Perfect.
included a secret database.
His name's a little bit bigger, so we're gonna give him a little bit
list
extra.
of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans
Nearly
who say
2
they're innocent.
million people. Oh man, he wants me to do the party colors.
CBS reports
No. See, Trump is orange because he's orange, and Biden is slightly old skin color. Maybe we can make this a little paler, actually.
Now streaming on the free CBS
That's the
News app.
parties we're going for here. I don't think either of these really represent either party. Here, let's see if we can get that a little older, maybe. That's better. All right, that's a little older.
There's some questions that
All
have to be
right.
asked.
Oh, and of course we got to up the opacity.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
Harrison says party colors, dumbass. Thank you, Harrison.
Imagine yourself in
I'm sorry,
Manhattan
Bobo.
with no police, no army.
Oh
no
man,
leader.
who knew?
People of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters.
Make sure you get a drink. This is about to get scary.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti.
Speaking
are
of Haiti, I hear
American
they're ruled by a dictator, gang leader named Barbecue, who burns his victims alive. So
But we can't be
more on this at 11.
We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look at.
I still believe in Haiti. Haiti
is
represent.
on the brink
Y'all out
of
there in the chat representing Haiti?
A radical shift.
Fuck
Nations
yeah.
are coming together and saying things
Fuck yeah, chat,
must
dude. Everybody loves
change.
Haiti.
Fighting for Haiti. Now streaming on the
Fight
free
for Haiti.
CBS
Dude,
News app.
can I get some Haiti profile picture emojis,
Hey there,
please?
welcome to the uplift. I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back.
Ukraine is so last year.
You're the queen.
Today we're moving
She's
to
gonna
Haiti.
be with me every instant that I'm
Boys
alive.
trip.
I just wanted to see
Vacation.
if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
Let's get these a little bit more opaque.
Stream now on the
You
free
can almost not
CBS
even see
News
their
app.
scorecards.
When you wake up in the morning,
let me know if you guys have any recommendations or ideas. Let's get this crazy out.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go to coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
Oh, dude. This is terrible.
The CBS News.
What's Fox got going on? Oh, they got nothing going on at all. We need a third stream. We need CNN up as well. We're going to watch every single debate that we can possibly find. All right, hold on. CNN presidential debate. Here it is.
A prep here for each of them
Oh,
that
man,
they
look at
think
these
will
wieners.
succeed best for them. I mean, if Donald Trump is not going to succeed at doing a mock debate and having side-by-side candidates and having people play
What is this
Biden
fucking background?
necessarily, why would you put your candidate in that position?
Oh, is
You
that
want
from
to
the
make sure your candidate
That's from
is
Fox.
preparing for the debate as they are going to communicate on the stage. And so the fact that they have
they have different fonts. I think Trump is
I think we can see
tortilla
day in and day out
font,
as they present
and I think
themselves to the country,
Biden is
that they
like
kind of have different
old
approaches about how they go out there and
Baggins
communicate
or something.
their
I don't know.
message. What is
Good
the
question
same
out there,
for them,
Bobo.
Wolf, are the enormous high stakes in this debate. They both have a lot of opportunity here.
They
but
both
also
have
great risk on this
a
stage.
lot of shit
This
in
is
their
a debate
diapers right now.
earlier than ever before.
They're
And
really
this is
struggling
an opportunity for them to really
even
focus
to
in
stand,
their message on those
at the debate
persuadable
stage 'cause
voters,
they're
many
so
of whom have
fucking
been
old.
disengaged, get them engaged and start.
Really, what we got to do is we got
those
to
voters are hearing.
mainline some Adderall
What is
for
the
each
secret
presidential
to winning
candidate.
a
We got to
presidential
really
debate,
get
and also
them
winning
really
over voters,
deep on
more
Adderall.
importantly? That is obviously
These are not the
something that is
opinions
all
of the
on
channel.
top of mind
And
for President
then
Biden
they'll be
and
able to
for
give one
President
hell of a
Trump tonight.
firecracker debate.
Is it a vibe? Is it a zinger?
In fact, I think they
Maybe
should
it's a
both do
moment like this
fireball
one.
shots before it gets going.
I think when you make that decision, it might be well if you would ask yourself.
Oh my gosh, that's
Are
literally
you better
me.
off
Look,
than you were 4 years ago?
I need my black tie.
We
though.
need fundamental change in this country, and that's what I'd like
Fundamental change.
If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor.
8 minutes, fellas. We're almost there.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Oh, yeah.
Because you'd be in jail.
Oh,
Those
shit, I forgot
moments
about
and
that.
many more are the kinds my next guest has
Are y'all ready for
studied
some
and
of that
voters'
tonight? Hell
reactions
yeah.
to them for more than 3 decades. Longtime pollster and communications strategist Frank Luntz joins me now. And Frank, I mean, you have written this really interesting article today about what actually wins voters over when it's in debates. And shockingly, to those of us on cable news, it's not always what the pundits think is the biggest takeaway.
No, it's very frustrating. In my walk here, I was saying to some of your staff, be very careful who you predict is the winner, because voters see it very differently. They're not trying to score points. They don't care if you
Everybody
trip
get a
up
drink.
on something, and they actually
Everybody
not
light up.
focused precisely
Get a cigarette
on every
going.
detail. They're looking
Cigarette,
at the
if you will.
personality. They're looking at the presentation. Do I trust them? Do I like them?
I feel like Biden
Can I
needs to
see
be
them as
bigger.
president?
Oh, shit.
Is this
Don't move
someone
the
I want to
background.
have in my living room every night for the next 4 years? And in the end, it's the reason why Donald Trump lost that debate with Joe Biden 4 years ago, and why he beat Hillary Clinton. And that line there.
Let's put it over there.
All the pundits said, oh my God, we're going to be a banana republic. He says he'd throw her in jail.
Banana.
And every network went nuts on him.
A
Our
banana.
focus group said, oh my God, he's actually going to hold her accountable. This is exactly what we're looking for in politics. So he was a disaster in 2020.
Dude, who are the
He was
moderators?
really good in 2016.
Well, when you look at
We got
those
any good
two
moderators
moments,
out there?
I'm sure there were some voters who did not like that moment. This political opponent clearly saying he'd put his opponent in
Wow.
jail because he doesn't like her. But when you actually look at this, you write in this and say that the key moments that will have the greatest impact on the remaining undecided voters, which is obviously what we're all paying attention to here, are those in which the candidates attack each other in defining ways or undermine the political case that
Wow.
each wants to present to Americans.
I can't
Nuanced
wait to
approach
hear their
quickly decide
defining
whether the
case for
accusations are
Americans.
fair and the response
Here's my prediction, everybody. Now that we have 6 minutes left, here's what I think is going to happen.
What does that look like?
By the way, it's only
The mics are going to
4%.
be off, right?
It's only in
So
3
one of the
states,
new things about
Pennsylvania,
this
Michigan,
debate
and Wisconsin.
is that
And I'd
Trump
be
and
asking
Biden will not be able to talk
rhetorical
over each other
questions, just like
at all.
Reagan did.
Their
Is inflation
microphones will be
higher
turned off
or
between their
lower
speaking
today
bubbles.
than it was 4 years ago? Is
So,
the border safer or less safe? Do you feel
I think
more or less secure? If I'm
that
Donald
we're going to be
Trump,
able to hear
and if
what
I'm Joe
Biden says.
do
I
you
bet
really want to go back
Trump
to
is
that
going to
chaos?
call him out
Do you
on
really wanna
sounding
go back
old
to
and being
it?
able
I'm
to
gonna do that for
stand,
3 or 4 times.
and then
Either
Biden's going to
ask a
jab back at
question
him.
or
I think that they will hardly talk about the issues at all. They will talk about immigrants in the border probably about 45 times. They will also talk about inflation a lot, I predict.
And in Joe Biden's case, he really hasn't figured out how to handle the ex-president.
I bet Joe Biden's going to say, will you shut up, man? Or, come on, man. And I bet Trump is going to say,
the situation, the
I walked in here, I said, wow.
Don't know this. It's not your fault.
What a great audience.
When you're watching,
these debaters are giving me fake news.
And you're there,
and I think we will all lose brain cells. At an alarming rate. Almost like a flesh-eating bacteria
Trump said about Hillary Clinton, there would have been no reaction to that inside that
I
room.
highly recommend you drink.
If there's that, if the mics are
it
being
will
shut
actually
off, and maybe
lower
we'll
the
still
amount of
see them
brain cells
talking
you
in the
lose.
two shots, but
And
not
it's
actually
sterile.
hear them.
So.
How much of a difference do you think that'll make?
It's huge. It's a big deal.
Huge.
These rules do not help Donald Trump. He was so eager to get Joe Biden into a debate that he said yes to anything. If I'd been advising him, I would have said, not this one. Yes, you want to debate him, but not through these rules. You need an audience. And second, he's so...
There's no audience? What the fuck?
He has no faith in Biden even being able to complete a sentence. So
I see that.
He made
The
fun
fact
of
that
him,
they're not allowed to have
and
an
now he's
audience,
trying
I
to
find
reverse
is
that.
really
Now he's trying to raise
bizarre.
expectations.
That makes me feel like we do have a public
if you tell people from
We
months,
can't even have people
this
be
guy
in the
can't
stands to
complete a
watch the
sentence.
debate.
Yeah, with a week to go, and you're saying, oh, he's going to be formidable, or
Is that because one of them doesn't have enough
he's gonna be
fans?
jacked up on drugs was 2020's. Oh, he's going to have it.
I hate to say it, but that sounds incredibly
sus. The other thing, though, is these two men are probably the best-known politicians.
Do you think they'll be reading off of teleprompters?
On the stage.
What milligram of Adderall do you think they're on, Hobo?
Is there anything really left to say to change voters' minds, do you think?
Not much. 70% of Americans do not want these two people. They're upset that it's Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. In the end, I believe we're going to be voting those final undecided voters, not on the candidate they like, but on the candidate they dislike the least. And that's why our democracy is so challenged right now. We're not happy with our choices, so we're trying to vote for the least worst evil.
CNN's Jeff Zeleny brings us now this look at how much the United States, the world, and these two candidates have changed since they first took the stage.
The historic rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump is anything but a rerun. A vastly different set of issues are driving this race, as the president and former president come face to face for their first debate of the 2024 campaign. 4 years since they shared a stage.
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
in 47 months,
You're the
I've
worst
done
president.
more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
All right.
It's like an upside-down lifetime ago, back when the coronavirus pandemic was raging.
Masks are okay. You have to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on it, when I think I need it.
This is his economy that's being shut down.
Hold on, I'm doing something funny.
Sequel,
Just roll with
an
it.
entirely new fight has been brewing on the campaign trail.
We could end up in World War III with this person. He's the
All right.
worst president ever.
And in TV.
Oh, what does this say? Oh my God, there's a whole bunch of chat. So there's no audience. Yeah, we talked about that. Trump got snited on the terms. They're also doing a 2-minute delay with no right to stop.
And fresh lines of attack.
Yeah, I heard that there's like
how much the country, the world,
there can be no talking over each other.
From an insurrection,
it's going to be very structured. Do you think they're going to ask like softball questions, or do you think it's going to be like some real hard-hitting questions? Because I have a feeling it's going to be like a fucking feather of questions. Like they're not fucking even trying to make it hard on these guys. No matter how dumb they are.
Economy, inflation, and immigration.
So Biden strokes out, or Trump is a huge asshole they can cancel.
Trump's record was at the heart of their last debates, even as he sought
that's
to deflect.
pretty fucking stupid.
If he gets in,
so we get one fucking presidential debate. There's no audience,
your 401ks will go to hell. And
it's
it'll be
all
a very,
incredibly
very
structured
sad
to the
day for
point
this
where you could
country.
probably
While
just
those
do whatever the
warnings
fuck you
didn't
want.
come to pass, Biden's record is now under the microscope,
we'll see.
complicating his effort to make it a referendum on Trump.
The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
He's a liar.
And America's oldest
I like how both of them are like, liar,
Trump
fake,
78, Biden
you're making
81,
shit up.
With age
One
and
of them is
fitness
telling
for
the
office,
truth,
now a central
surely,
issue
or is
in the
neither
race.
of them telling the truth?
Public opinion for presidents can be punishing. Biden's favorability has fallen 11 points since 2020, with nearly 6 in 10 Americans holding an unfavorable
That's not
view.
good for Big Joe.
Perceptions of Trump have changed less, with more than half still seeing him in an unfavorable light. Televised debates
that's probably
have
good
long
for the
been
Big
a storied
D.
part of presidential campaigns, with
Big D.
history-making moments for candidates.
There you go again.
Yet this showdown is without parallel. The nation's 45th and 46th presidents, still seeking to define one another in the earliest general election debate in memory, an old duel being fought on new ground.
Shit, dude, are they actually getting up there now? No, they're not even fucking up there yet. For fuck's sake! I can't wait for them to start now. We got 30 seconds, fellas. Oh, man. About to get some real hard-hitting, pipe-wielding presidents up here. Oh, man. Shit. Let's get this louder. What? It's over here. My wife has joined us. Oh, do you want a glass? Alright, this is my glass. That's your. Are you excited? She's not excited. She's not as excited as I am.
Georgia, a key battleground state in the race for the White
House. Georgia?
In just moments, the current U.S. president.
Oh, man,
will
hell
debate
yeah.
the former U.S. president as their party's presumptive nominees, a first in American history.
Oh, man, I can't wait.
In the United States
Who do you think's going to shit their pants first?
In Atlanta. This is the CNN presidential.
In Atlanta? Who do you think is going to be mugged on the way to the debate first?
CNN and is coming to you live on CNN, CNN International,
live on CNN,
CNN Max, and CNN Espanol. This is a pivotal moment between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in their rematch for the nation's highest office.
We honor you, Big Brother.
This case to the American people with just over 4 months.
Glorious rulers of CNN.
Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN.
Oh yeah, definitely get a glass of bourbon.
And co-anchor of
Absolutely.
State of the Union.
I'm Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN.
And I have a wife.
Co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates tonight.
Alright, so the guy on the left looks like an MSNBC dad, I will say. But the lady on the right looks like a Trump daughter.
President Biden will be appearing.
So maybe we do have an even debate.
Determined their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question. And 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals.
Oh man, I'll give you a rebuttal.
For follow-up, clarification, or response.
Oh wow, look at those two guys. I love how they haven't updated their photos from 2016.
Will be turned on, and his
fucking
microphone
2020.
will be turned off. Should a candidate
oh fuck, dude, 2016 is 8 years ago.
He will be difficult
Holy
to
shit!
understand
Let that sink
for
in for a
viewers
second,
at home.
everybody.
At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements.
At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes to radically call out their opponent and say that everything they said was a lie.
Not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation,
which moderator is the one Matt thinks is hot? I think it's the MSNBC dad. I think it's this guy right here.
Please welcome.
He's right here. I'm kind of rubbing his belly.
Oh. States, Joe Biden.
There he is! Big Joe. There he is, Big Joe. Oh, look at him. He's pointing. Oh, he's not looking so good, actually. Actually, he looks pretty confident.
And please welcome the 45th.
You think he's on barbiturates to like? I would be anxious. Woo! There he is, Big T. Oh, Big Trump. Beautiful. What a beautiful man. They're both beautiful men.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel
This
they
is
are
a real
worse
rough
off under
question.
your presidency than they were
Oh,
under
look at him!
President
He doesn't look like he's ready.
What I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious.
Oh, yeah.
Just inject a little
Goodbye,
bleach and
countdown.
you're on. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do was try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out a position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of household where the kitchen table things weren't able to be met during the winter was a problem.
Yeah, let's get some subtitles up here.
The price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems.
I don't think he grew up at a nice...
We're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build
little quaint family home in Scranton.
We're going to make sure we cap rents.
I'm going to guess he was rich as fuck.
Can't take over. The combination that I was left with in corporate greed is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all.
He's blaming Trump?
Things were in chaos.
It's pretty weak, not going to lie.
And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people. To $15 for an insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price of around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID, and when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in the Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce-back jobs, a bounce-back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world.
Are they both reading from papers?
I don't know anybody else who thinks they have the greatest economy in the world. And, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover.
But that is because of COVID,
than he had
right?
when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military...
I feel like you can't blame COVID on Trump.
When he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president...
It was his idea to shut down Afghanistan.
You had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have any, this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S.
Background
How
music.
will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
Not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to
China.
It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right
I wish
about
they
is
could
I gave
talk
you
in more
the
detail.
largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back.
That
You
was a
just take
big
credit for bounce back jobs. You can't
That was
do
a big
that.
W. I'm
He
not going to
also
lie.
said he inherited
That might be a 1
9%
point.
inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years,
I'm not going to lie, that might be.
The national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration.
Can we get a fact check on that?
He did the mandate, which is a disaster.
Brooks saying Sleepy Joe.
The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, he got $2 trillion tax cut, benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look. If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
He was getting good there. I would have given him a point until he broke at the end there.
Medicare, because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence, and it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people, they cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries,
fuck
they
those
do nothing
stinky
for
other
us.
people who
what
aren't in
this
our country.
man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you,
But on
President
the
Trump.
other hand,
Tana?
This is the first presidential election
they are pretty cool.
since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it.
Ooh.
And if you look at this whole question that
Okay.
you're asking,
I didn't expect
complex,
that.
but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, and getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great
How long has he been talking?
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority
I will say that was a
of
surprisingly
supported
pro-choice
Roe when
answer
it was
from
decided.
Trump.
Supported
I didn't
Roe.
expect that.
And
I thought he'd be totally against
this idea
abortion.
that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, that each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in to talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered
Doctor says,
by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. Consider the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have done. Everybody wanted it brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So interesting. He can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia.
Is this true?
The baby down,
we get a fact check on that, chat.
So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period.
The fuck is a MAGA?
At 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden,
a
record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the border
I don't know if
patrol
this is true either.
Endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country.
Why does Biden keep looking at him like
people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists?
What is
They're
he
the
thinking
largest
about?
number of terrorists coming into our country right now. All terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation, because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it.
Did he call him Brandon?
And people are dying all over the place,
I think he's talking to you,
the
Brandon.
people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed 3, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person, come in his administration, killed 3 American soldiers. killed 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again,
sad.
He's exaggerating, he's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi.
So the Virginia governor did not say that. We have a fact check in the audience.
Terrorists anywhere in the world, and it had a huge impact on everything, not just
I'm not
border,
really sure what
everything.
Biden just said, I will say.
He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying, and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it.
He should have
like
just said Biden crime.
Incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them I just
al-Baghdadi.
And he just had the funeral.
Died like a dog.
12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's
like
taking
Ted's
place
wife.
in our country. We're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast, because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all, and he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing I said is a lie. Every single one.
Everything you said was a lie.
A lot better off. It's past the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And he opposed, his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker.
He did say
You're
that.
the loser.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers.
I'll give Biden one for that.
It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up.
Can we get a fact check on this?
There's nobody that's taken
Is that
better
true?
care of our soldiers.
Did he actually
than I
not
have.
say that? I'll take the point back.
Think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. and they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now.
Real quick, can we just talk about the fact that both of them are so old you can hear it in their voice that they're like,
They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
Both of them.
All right, thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine with its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them.
He's got pink
And that's based on every single bit of information.
Look at him laughing.
As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost. But he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind, too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take my... This was his dream. I talked to him about it.
That was like fucking Saigon, too. I will agree.
He never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded.
But I don't think that that's true.
In a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
President Biden?
The whole world is blowing up.
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact
malarkey. We got a malarkey counter.
Let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I got cut off too.
For 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable.
No,
but look,
shit.
This is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along.
Tough words.
He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
Interesting.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire. not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way,
what he's going to do if he does what he says.
We give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have.
That's a lie. I know that. I know that for a fact is bullshit.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October,
they
Hamas
have not
attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas, number one. They're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so there are 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued.
There's a lot of Palestinian soy boys right now that are crying in their kitchen.
Get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas. Greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
I agree.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent $100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President
He's
Biden, you have a minute?
pro-Israel.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have...
Good question.
Our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, Would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the
That's true. You can't call Trump a Nazi anymore if he supports Israel.
region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations. Because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have. But we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question, would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time. And I said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump.
That's true. I don't want to pay for anybody else's bills.
I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. That what happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point we'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing,
is that true?
The mayor of D.C., they turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there.
Is that
on
true?
January 6th, they're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it, too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours. 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side of
the drama's coming out, deep it down.
Stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. He went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down Many other cities. You go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots? Come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After the jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about the feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea.
I didn't like the sun attack.
Relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one.
I'll give that to Biden.
Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history.
This is an intense debate. I'm not going to lie.
Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with. And think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Man, they're flinging shit at each other right now. It's like two monkeys.
Number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case.
She did say Trump was hung, by the way. That is, you can fact-check that.
Terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam, and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy.
Morals of an alley cat.
That the tens of millions of Americans
it's not worth the
likely
point.
to vote for President Trump
But
will be voting
he does get a point for that whole thing.
American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes, the more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming out. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do.
One of those
but
Newsmax
I
magazines you
no
see
problem.
when you're checking
And
out at the
so
grocery
fact
store.
that- Could you ever think you hear any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq.
Can we isolate that audio?
Until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. They spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on both sides." What American president would ever say Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people? This is the guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. Good things Hitler's done. That's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on that. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day it came out where it was
I think
fully
he did say
debunked.
that, but he also
It's
said
a nonsense story.
that the Nazis
he knows that,
in
and he
whatever
didn't run
are
because of
completely
Charlottesville. He
reprehensible and
used that
deserve
as an
nothing.
excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunk. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Fact check, the guy that claimed it is the only one, and he said that he didn't find Twitter. So none of that is true. Okay, so he didn't say anything about the Nazis. They just made that up. If you're watching at home, apparently that is fact check false. Oh, shit, dude. Alright. I need thoughts. I need thoughts and comments. Did he actually say that? Oh, the Hitler comment isn't true? Okay, so the Hitler comment is bullshit. Hitler comment is bullshit. But the Charlottesville, there's good people on both sides. I'm pretty sure what he said, if you listen to the whole clip, I think they clipped it, is he said that there was good people on both sides of the Charlottesville, like, parade demonstration. But then later he said, like, they asked him, like, oh, what about the, like, Nazis? And he said, like, oh, the Nazis and white supremacists deserve no respect or something like that. I think is the full quote. So I know that that's false. But you're saying that the Hitler comment was just one guy saying that, so it's probably not true. Yeah, dude, I don't know. Probably not true. crazy. Oh my god. Yeah, I don't know. That was a lot of fucking shit slinging that was going on there. That actually was quite crazy. I feel like he was like, "Oh, your son's a felon. You're a felon. You're a Nazi." Like they were just kind of like, "Gotcha. I gotta say, I feel like right now, if I had to pick who I thought was doing better, I honestly think this probably looks a little better for Biden just because he seems coherent and I mean he's had a few slip-ups of speaking as he does, but I'd say that I feel like he hasn't had any. Well, he's had a couple massive fuck-ups, but I feel like they both kind of have. So I'd say I think he's like maybe 51-49 right now. I don't think anybody's really winning, to be honest with you. They haven't really talked about the issues. Both of them are dodging questions like a motherfucker. And it's pathetic. And I would kind of like to get into the nitty-gritty of what they really are going to do. And not just like, oh, I support Israel. Israel's the best. And I, too, support Israel. My opponent doesn't support Israel. I don't give a fuck. What are you going to do to stop the fucking prices from being out of fucking control? And, like, what is your actual fucking plan? Do you have any fucking plan at all, or are you just talking out of your asshole? And then to go further, I could give less at all about the fucking shit throwing. Can we just, like, figure out what the fuck we're going to do about fucking impending World War III? Fucking Israel's in Palestine's on fire. And we gotta do some shit about that. Fucking Cuba's falling apart. Fucking Haiti's falling apart. Bolivia just had a coup. The fucking world is falling apart, and nobody's saying anything about that shit. We're over here talking about, oh, who's a felon, who's not, and, oh, your son made a shady deal, and, oh, well, you slept with a porn star. Fuck that shit. Can we talk about what you're actually gonna fucking do? Please? Or is it just gonna be this fucking circus? I think we're all being fucking puppeted by the CIA, if I'm honest with you. I mean, this is fucking pathetic. All right, we're back.
And presidential debate live from Georgia. Let's talk about persistent challenges you both faced in your first terms, and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one.
This is some hard questions.
The fact of the matter is there's more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're providing housing for black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the
I heard that in way too long.
Choice that black families have to make relative to
all right, the internet said what he just said is false.
Incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black child care costs. I cut them in half.
He did do that.
Half. We've got to make sure we provide for child care costs. Got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What
that was a strong finish for him.
Voters who are disappointed with the progress so far.
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who provided had to take out student loans. That
why is Trump just like
that? If they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt. All the rest was forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President
That
Trump.
was a whole lot of words and a whole lot of
He's
not an
blaming
answer.
inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New Scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his biggest kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now. And it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation.
That was COVID.
At the time.
That was COVID,
jobs. It provided thousands and millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, if the ACA has increased, I made sure that they're
Yeah, can we get a fact check? What exactly is a black job, please?
Get written off for health care. This guy wants to eliminate that. They've tried 50 times. He wants
I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to get canceled.
And they're going to try again if they win. We find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity.
He wants to cut the cops.
People have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on. But in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest.
I'm going to give Trump a point for that, I think.
And communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects.
That was surprisingly coherent from both sides.
Wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels.
I do like that Trump actually had an idea about trying to help black Americans.
Opponents' climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group.
I don't know if that's something you'd want to broadcast.
Population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen
anything even mentioned
yet.
Climate change.
38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive
everything you say is wrong. Here's why.
In history. we find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have those. They don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and all like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He must undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody.
Hobo's drinking his piss in chat.
I have the biggest
nice.
heart on the stage, I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
Diabetes!
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything if we're not able to, the United States can't get its under control?
This is like fucking Looney Tunes.
One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress.
Is he hitting the vape?
By 2030,
Biden's hitting the vape.
We'll have cut pollution in
Y'all saw it, right?
We've
Vape's out for Biden.
Progress. And we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps where thousands of young people will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
so every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline.
I got AIDS.
President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10
see it, honestly.
years. Will you name tonight one
when you're 80, though, it
specific
doesn't really
step
affect you that
you're
much.
willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time the first one they get when they're 18 years old.
Fair.
The idea that I'm proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent, but the biggest thing will do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare both times. And and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that he's
we're never going to see Social Security money. Guys, if you're in the chat right now and you're under the age of 74 right now, you're never going to see Social Security. no, it's probably like 55.
American public
probably like realistically like 55.
Today than ever before.
Yeah, that's not anything to laugh about.
As I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. The only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where we talk about education for black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Okay.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen that he can look you in the face.
Everything he said is a lie.
And we mentioned the laptop. We
And I'm
mentioned
right.
Russia, Ukraine. And everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it. Because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security, they're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid, they're putting them in our hospitals, they're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden?
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one who's acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because
I made this earlier.
I fired a lot of the top people.
It's a painting I made.
FBI, drained the swamp.
It's them flinging shit at each other.
Fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put him there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit.
Does this have anything to do with child health care? Good call out, Hobo.
He wants our country to either be destroyed.
I kind of had I stroked out a little bit there because man, this is fucking hard to watch.
Can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's no capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one. wants to screw around with us. Nobody.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up or go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue.
I'm looking it up right now. Is that true?
The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care.
I don't know what this has anything to do with child care. Good call, Joe. Get back on the issue.
Increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other
We
things
are the
that
world.
They rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you, and they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire.
All right.
Everybody, including the two of you,
fuck?
will pay 4 to 5 times.
Ain't nobody paying any more taxes.
All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians.
You guys aren't buying anything anymore.
When we cut taxes,
in fact, burn down the Capitol, sell it for
more
parts.
business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about. He's increased the tariff. He will increase the taxes on middle class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that we're importing. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. The middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, President Biden.
Man, dude,
let's
fucking Biden out here is vicious, dude. I think they got him on that bullstruck testosterone. I don't know so much about the Adderall. They fucking.
And for both of you,
he's out there like America.
Overdose deaths.
I'm gonna give him a point.
Has gone up under your term. It went up under
your
fucking
term. Vicious
it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them
China
what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot. And we
we bought the dog.
Low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now?
Biden was ranked the 14th greatest president by the same list that listed Trump as the worst.
But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women.
I smell feces
coming across our border.
I don't know about
the
that.
Worst thing I've
Hold
ever
on,
seen,
let me look at this.
At numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl.
Biden.
These big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together. This bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, "Don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically." No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. We're coming down very.
Man, I fucking spit on this, dude. This is just
in terms of precursors for fentanyl, and Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans
Child
in the
healthcare.
throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago. But Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look, I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars.
Can we get a fact check on some of this?
In enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States, and they're guess what? Those fabs they call to build these chips. Those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them, and there's billions. About $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are
finished with 40 seconds left.
Country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world
so
that keeps our
patriotic.
word. And
I might give him a point just for this.
All of our allies and our those who he coddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, who he sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape
Golf
as
is in play.
25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably
Golf
a little
off.
bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see
one of them said
5 and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what you're. Anyway, just take a look.
I don't think he did say that, actually. Can we get a replay?
Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was at 8 handicap.
What is happening right now?
But I have, you know how many?
This is remarkably cordial. I would like to see them play golf, actually.
President Trump, we're going to turn
Can we get them to please play golf?
to a specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now.
I love
we're
the patriotism.
Seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all, a required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we're a powerful nation. We have wonderful peace. Because of the people.
I think I might give Trump a point for this.
They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
I'm going to be honest. I think Trump sounded better out of that. I'm going to give him a point.
The question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins.
He did say that.
Just to finish what he said.
He said he would.
Russia.
Which I was quite surprised
They took a
by.
lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this with... He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia. Because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President
president.
Trump, the question was, will you accept
Oof.
the results of the election? Regardless
That
of
had nothing to do with the question.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over.
Did I hear somebody shout out? Was that one of the
You're a
announcers?
whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything?
Biden is just on the attack today.
You when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate, live from Georgia.
Oh, dude, this is pretty great. Nothing like two octogenarians fucking flinging shit at each other, calling each other fucking hypocrites and pieces of shit. And, man, I gotta say, as terrifying as it is, they both seem rather coherent. One of the things I had going into this was that I was worried that Biden was not as coherent anymore. And I think he sounded pretty reasonable on stage. I don't think he sounded incoherent. I think he's held his own. And, you know, I can't say whether or not that's on Adderall or whatever, as everybody says. But I'll give him that. I think they both made really good points. I think some of the shit throwing is a little ridiculous. I think Trump is being a little bit softer, which I think is probably going to do him a good trick. And I think Biden is being a little bit more aggressive, which I think is also what voters want to see out of him. They want to see that he's not just an old man. So it's a pretty close debate. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I don't know who's going to win this. This is a surprisingly, well, I feel like it's been a pretty good debate. I would like to see them go deeper into their plans for things and maybe expound upon maybe what they're going to do, what their next steps are. I feel like they don't ever really go into that. They just kind of throw shit at each other. They're like, oh, he's for China. And, oh, yeah, I have 40 seconds left to talk about child health care. Yeah, children are the best. Woo! Go Dogs. And then it's just like, all right. Well, that didn't answer anything. So, but to be honest, I mean, I remember back in like 2008, it was no different. So, Honestly, this has been the most tame debate since like 2008. I think just because they're so old, they're like, what did you say about me? You could hear it in their voices. They're like exhaling as they speak. It's like they have like holes, like they're like a pop balloon. Ukraine! World War III, you say? I was there at World War I. Terrible war, really. They called it the Great War. Of course, they didn't know about World War II. Man, it's fucking wild out here. Man. Bobo the Hobo says, that was a Biden dub. I don't know. I would like to see the conclusion. I think they get 2 final minutes to say whatever. Unless that was what they just did. I feel like they haven't really had that yet. Yeah, they're gonna be right back. A lot hinges on this moment, everybody.
Deliver their closing statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience, or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again.
Why do you keep raising taxes?
This guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with big pharma companies. Well, guess what? we got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along, it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you. Because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs. But he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like. Even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron
That's the
Burnett
end.
Starts now on CNN.
Yeah, fuck. I don't give a fuck about their analysis of the debate. Oh, man. Holy shit. Look at those guys. Look at those two old-ass fucking oranges, dude. Oh, my gosh. Dude, that is the darkest room I've ever seen. That looks like fucking 1984. That is absolutely terrifying. Well, I think I have to say that I think Trump's closing speech was slightly more coherent.
Their way off the CNN debate stage, looks like.
And I don't fuck you, Mr. Clean. And you know, I think that was a very close debate, but I might say that it might have been slightly, ever so slightly in Trump's favor by the end. I think at the beginning it might have been in Biden's favor. And I think by the end, I feel like Biden was kind of running out of things to throw. And Trump was kind of like, we gotta, I don't know. He seemed like he still had some more energy left in him. Especially at the end there. I feel like that last closing argument might have sealed the deal. It was pretty damn close, I'll tell you what. Well, stick around. And I hope you guys enjoyed that debate. In my opinion, we're going to have to give this debate to Trump. But stick around. We'll catch you around. And potentially the next debate.
People down the party in the ticket, and they're having conversations about what they should do about it. Some of those conversations include, should we go to the White House and ask the president to step aside? Other of the conversations are about, should prominent Democrats go public with that call? Because they feel this debate was so terrible. They do say, in moments in the debate later, the president got better and got his footing, but then at the end, even his closing statement was a little halting. The contrast between the two candidates. Let me be clear. None of them, and a lot of Republicans, don't think Donald Trump had a great night. Donald Trump broke the fact-check machine more than I can count tonight. That will be on the record as we go forward. He refused to answer some very specific and direct questions about his conduct, about January 6th and what all. So that will be dealt with out there. And sometimes there's a parallel universe between the political elites and the American people. It'd be nice to see what the voters say. But I can tell you, it started minutes in. It started with the first couple of answers, and it has continued throughout the night from a, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God, to what do we do about this? And it involves very senior people in the Democratic Party, including elected officials, saying we have a problem.
And just to co-sign what John is saying, I mean, the panic that
Man, Fox is just trash.
Okay, it's childish, can't be no homegirl, drop it like the NASDAQ. Move white girls like this coat up my ass crack. Move black girls, cause man, fuck it, I'll do either. I love pussy, I love bitches, dude, I should be running Peter in Adidas with some short shorts. B-O-O all over me, my green is where it's supposed to be. Your green is in my grocery. This Asian dude, I stole his girl, and now he got that Koji beef. My dick is like an accent mark, it's all about the over-E. Hot like a parked car. I sound weird like nigga with a hard R. Fly like the logo on my cousin's 440. Eating Oreos like these white girls that blow me. Vodka for my ladies, whiskey for a grown man. Hanging in the islands looking for Earl like Toe Jam. I made the beat retarded, so I'm calling it a slow jam. Butcher and I know it, man. Kill beef, go ham. These rappers are afraid of him, cause I'm a beast, bitch, girl. Invaders and Gambino is a call girl. Fuck you, pay me. Brand new whip for these niggas like slavery. Told me I was awful and that shit did not faze me. Tell me how I suck again, my memory is hazy. You're my favorite rapper now, yeah, dude, I better be. Or you can fucking kiss my ass, human centipede. You wanna see my girl? I ain't that dumb. You wanna see my girl? Check Maxim. Man, why does every black actor gotta rap some? I don't know, all I know is I'm the best one. It's a bonfire, turn the lights out. I'm burning everything you motherfuckers talk about. It's a bonfire, turn the lights out. I'm burning everything you motherfuckers talk about. You know these rapper dudes talk shit, start killing. Fuck that, got goons like an arch villain. I'm from the south, ain't got no accent, don't know why. So this rapper's child's play, I do my name like Princess Di. Yeah, they say they want the realness, rapped about my real life. Told me I should just quit. First of all, you talk white. Second off, you talk like you haven't given up yet. Rap stepfather, yeah, you hate me, but you will respect. I put in work, ask Ludwig. Put my soul on the track like Shoes did. Play this for my cousin, now he can't even think straight. Black and white music, now nigga, that's a mixtape. Shout out to my blurs, they represent the realness. Shout out to Gambino girls, my dick is in the building. I know you hate me cause your little cousin play me out. I like black girls who nerdy, but when they dance they be saying ow. I'm sorry for who follow me. Chillin' with a Filipina at your local Jollibee. Yeah, I'm in her ass like side of me. So if you see my hand under the table, don't bother me. I don't talk soft, that's that other guy. I'm screaming what the fuck is up like I ain't see the sky. The shit I'm doing this year, insanity. Made the beat that murdered it, Casey Anthony. These rappers won't know what to do, cause all I did was act me like a Looney Tune. And I'll give you all of me until there's nothing left. I swear this summer will be summer camp, bitch.
Crush a bit, little bit, roll it up, take a hit, feeling lit, feeling right, 2 a.m. summer night, I don't care, hand on the wheel, driving drunk, I'm doing my thing, roll